welcome back to the channel and another episode of Racing Roundup where I talk through all the action that's happened over the last couple of days, and we're going to kick off talking with the flat that came back over the weekend, both here in England at Doncaster and over in Meydan. And we'll start off at Doncaster in the Brocklesby, which was the first race for the 2-year-olds. I always like seeing these 2-year-olds coming out because at the end of the day there could be anything, and I think we saw a pretty good one in the winner of the Brocklesby in Persian Force. He was sent off even money. He was very well supported throughout the day, ridden by Curragh and trained by Richard Hannon. I think that's a combination we're going to be seeing quite a bit more of this season in the Amateur Racing Silks. He won by nearly 5 lengths in the end. It was 4 3/4 lengths, and he did it in very good style. He was tracked the pace and then was kicked on by Curragh, and then he did kick on very well. She had a very good turn of foot, and in years gone by the form of this race is always one to keep an eye on. Last year we had Chipotle for Eve Johnson Horton, who went on to be winning quite a few big races and rated 100, and also Vintage Clarets, who finished 4th that day. He was also rated over 100 at the end of the season as well. So the form of the race usually works out well. This year round I think it's only really the winner to take out of the race. In behind, I don't think there was any top class horses really. I mean, they might show improvement first, the second run and go on from there, but for me it's all about the winner in Persian Force. And it was also Curragh and the Richard Hannon team teaming up again in the 3 o'clock, the Doncaster Mile Stakes, a listed contest, and it was Chindit who bounced back to form, got his 5th career win after 11 starts, and it was nice to see him back in the winners' enclosure because he did have a lofty reputation and he somewhat lost his way. He was 5th in the 2000 Guineas, and you just thought he never really kicked on last season. He's got a rating of 112, so it's definitely a top class horse on his day, and it was very good to see. He won by 2 lengths in the end. The second horse, Tempest, trained by Archie Watson, well, that's only rated 101, so it's a decent enough yardstick. I don't think Tempest will be winning much at listed level this season, but Chindit is definitely a class above the rest of the horses in this race, and he was definitely one to keep an eye on going forward. I'd like to see him. I think he's capable of winning a few group races later on in the season for sure. And now on to the Lincoln Handicap, and it was Sylvester de Souza who gave a very nice ride to Johan, who managed to win, and he popped up at 28 to 1. I would have never picked him in a million years, and he wasn't one with the profile that you'd think would go on and win. He wasn't exactly young and exposed, open to a lot of improvement. This race is usually good for 4-year-olds. Well, this horse was a 5-year-old, and his form at the back end of last season did kind of tail off somewhat, but he's a good miler on his day. Won that off 102. I think it'll be hard for him to back up that performance. The handicap will definitely have his say, and he might be a little bit too high for some handicaps later on in the season, but you never know. He's one that maybe could develop and win the odd week listed race, and he's one to keep an eye on. But Sylvester de Souza, I think he's a jockey that you might want to follow this season. He's not one that is associated with all the biggest yards and gets a lot of ammunition and support like a William Buick does for Charlie Appleby, but he's a very good jockey on his day, and he goes anywhere. You see him riding in Class 6 races all the time. He'll ride whatever. He's got a great attitude, and is definitely one that if you've got a horse that you fancy with Sylvester de Souza on board, it's definitely not a bad thing at all. Now we're going to quickly head over to the Curragh, where Mother Earth bounced back and made her seasonal reappearance and won in pretty good style in the end. Won by just under a length from Insinuendo, I think is called. The Ryan Moore gave this horse a nice enough ride, and she's one that again showed some good form last season, was second in the Falmouth Stakes, and then reappeared in Leopardstown, showed some good form there, and just was never cutting it at the highest level. Was 5th in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, whereby he'd won. That was some decent enough form, but you think this horse might not be an out-and-out Group 1 horse in England, but she could be able to pick up some races over in France or something. She's quite well travelled. She'll be capable of winning some good races there. She won the Prix Rothschild in France last season. I think she's one that should go on to better things. As I said, she's very well travelled already has run in Hong Kong, Leopardstown, England, France. So she's somewhat of a globetrotter, and I think she's definitely one that'll be winning again this season. And we're going to finish off talking about the action over in Meydan, and it was Curragh who won the Dubai World Cup. Now, this race didn't really live up to expectations for me. Life is Good just didn't see out the trip, faded into fourth in the end. That was the one horse that you probably would get excited about if it won. Curragh, trained by Bob Baffert. Well, I'm just going to leave it there. There's nothing really to get excited about, because you just get a feeling in a few weeks you're going to hear about some sort of drug story or something like that. It's somewhat off-putting that a trainer that isn't allowed to run his horses in certain areas in America is turning up and winning the biggest race, and well, one of the biggest races in the world. So for me, that was somewhat of an underwhelming factor, but Funky Dettori did give it a good ride, and he also dead heated in the Dubai turf on Lord North. It was nice to see him improve from his seasonal appearance. He was probably poor in getting beaten by Alan Creer in the Winter Derby, but he definitely took a big step forward. That was definitely a pipe opener for this, and winning about £6 or £7 million is definitely justified the decision to set him up for this race. It was a very good race. Funky Dettori probably left it a bit too late and just got there to force the dead heat, but then Vindegard was also closing very quickly as well for Japan, and the second was Japanese trained as well. So Japan did definitely conquer this meet, and they had like 5 winners, I think. So it's definitely what I said a couple of videos, that Japan are definitely ruling not just the middle distance division, but they've got some very good horses, and I think they're going to be conquering world racing for a few years to come. So they're definitely horses to keep an eye on. I'd love to see some more Japanese horses conquering, or coming over to England and testing it against the best English horses. Now that rounds up today's episode of the Racing Roundup. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're very close to 150, so if you can subscribe, it'd be much appreciated, and we'll see you next time.